And I think this is where it comes to the whole issue of costs and burdens on the British economy, and indeed on British industry. I'm reliably informed, as I get my bits of paper here, by the Energy Intensive Users Group that already of the energy costs to industry, about 25% is because of the policies already relating to climate change. It's the climate change level, it's the renewables obligation, and it's the costs of the EU's emissions trading scheme. Now these costs are due to rise very rapidly, especially on the renewables obligation and on the emissions trading scheme. And indeed, I'm interested to note that because of all the concerns in Germany over these increased costs of the emissions trading scheme, that Mrs. Merkel has actually gone back on the whole idea. And if I could just quote from the Financial Times, which is an interesting paper in all sorts of different ways. A German government decision to back up almost total exemption from industry from the new rules that force companies to pay for the carbon dioxide they emit. In other words, she's saying with all these changes to the emission trading scheme that we've agreed to and will make life much more difficult for our industry, Mrs. Merkel is saying, I'm not putting up with this for German industry. I'm not putting up with the costs that are going to be imposed on German industry. I'm simply not going to do it. And in fact, she was quoted as saying she could not support the destruction of German jobs through an ill-advised climate policy. In other words, she's put a boot into it. And yet our government presumably still thinks we can go along with this. I sometimes despair. I say, here we are in the middle of a financial crisis where we know that the financial sector in this country will probably have to shrink. We're talking about looking for other sources of economic growth in this country. I know that the BER, the Department of Business, Enterprise and Regulatory Reform, is talking about reindustrializing Britain. What are they doing? Because you will not reindustrialize Britain if you're going to put huge competitive burdens on them. And especially industries like cement and chemicals and steel, they'll be under such enormous competitive disadvantages that those businesses will simply migrate. So there we are. As you gather, I'm somewhat of a pessimist in all this, and I'm seriously concerned. I really, really am seriously concerned. But I always have to end on a little bright note because I'm a bright little bee, really. Think about it. Oh dear, I'm going to start crying. But never mind. We know that climate change bill will be enacted. We know that the British government will try and meet its targets for cutting carbon dioxide emissions by 2020. We know that they're pushing ahead with a major program of building wind turbines. But the world is changing. The mood is changing. Perhaps it was all right to have these nice green ideas when everything was going hunky-dory and we were having a terrific economic party. But the world changes. Bill Clinton, and he knew a thing about life, said, is the economy stupid? And as more and more people are facing up to their living standards falling, not least of all because gas and electricity prices are rising so fast, that they really will begin to question the increased cost to them of these green policies. And I understand recently the Taxpayers Alliance did a survey and it asked people, you know, these green taxes, is it really to raise revenue, or is it really to save the planet? And 74% of people said, oh, it's just raising revenue, and only 11% of people said it was to save the planet. In other words, there's a huge cynicism out there about the motivation behind their taxes. And interesting enough, too, that a survey that show for all the propaganda that is thrown at people, there is huge skepticism in the general public that actually climate change is driven by man-made carbon dioxide emissions. There really is a huge skepticism. And I think the final thing I would say, so that's economics, if you like. I think economics are changing the debate. But there's something else called weather. People are not blind, and they have quite a few senses, and they know that over the last 2 or 3 years, we haven't had any global warming. And I say that does accord with the more official statistics on temperature. In other words, people are beginning to question the whole thing. And as a combination of weather and a combination of economics, I think we'll see the debate change quite quickly over the next few years, over the next few months. And all I can say to you is, it needs to. Thank you very much.